Okay, ladies and gentlemen, to have your attention for a moment, please. This session is a country spotlight on Kazakhstan, and your interviewer or moderator here is Wendy Tyrrell. Wendy is the Executive Director of Development Partner Institute, known to us as DPI. I'll leave it to Wendy to introduce our guest speakers, so please join me in welcoming Wendy and the topic of Kazakhstan.
Thank you so much, Gavin, and I'm really delighted to be here to introduce and talk with two wonderful speakers from Kazakhstan, a country that I was fortunate enough to visit in 2016. And you're going to hear some really interesting stories from Kazakhstan, which is a fascinating country. It's a huge country. You're going to hear about the periodic table that's in the resources in Kazakhstan. You're going to hear about two organizations that have a depth of experience in Kazakhstan. So I'd like you to welcome Andrew Southam, who is the CEO of Kaz Minerals, and Dr. Kanat, and I'm going to have trouble with your last name, Kudaibergen, okay, close. And Dr. Kanat is the CEO of Grey Wolf Management that is establishing a $100 million fund in Kazakhstan. So, yes, I'm going to first of all ask Andrew, what do you see as the two or three most interesting trends in Kazakhstan in the context of mining and mineral resources?
Okay, well, thank you, Wendy, for that, and it's a pleasure to be here. So firstly, I think I'd say that Kazakhstan has got a long history in mining, and it has also a long history in attracting foreign direct investment. And that's very important because it creates a stability in that country, a sense of direction in where that country is going. And that FDI you can see, particularly in the oil space, where Kazakhstan has got some very, very significant oil assets. It's been attracting around $20 billion a year in FDI over the last 10 years. That also flows through into the mining sector. We saw $10 billion of FDI in 2021. And Kazakhstan has got some very established mining players there. If you look at uranium, copper ourselves, iron ore, phosphates, we've got zinc, gold, many other metals too. There's a very established mining companies. And in recent years, Kazakhstan has continued to develop the mining sector. In 2016, they became members of CRISCO. They introduced KazRC, which is equivalent to JORC in terms of mineral resource reporting. The legal reform in Kazakhstan has been progressing as well, and in 2017 they drafted a new mining code, which introduced a lot more transparency, clearer rights and regulations around the allotment of exploration assets. And in June 22 last year, they created a national service for the provision of geological data, so that investors looking to enter Kazakhstan would be able to get access to that valuable geological data in terms of determining targets. Now, Kaz Minerals has been part of that story as well. We've been extremely comfortable in the environment, very confident in the outlook due to that continued focus on FDI. We've invested $6 billion on new projects which have come online since 2016, and we will continue to invest there. So for us, Kazakhstan is moving absolutely in the right direction, and it's modernizing. It's modernizing in a collaborative way with mining and with other stakeholders. So we don't believe that we will have any sort of negative surprises. The Kazakhstan is moving in the right direction. It's already very established, and I think that success will continue to be built upon.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Andrew. I want to ask, can everyone hear Andrew well? Okay, fabulous. Thank you. So, a big country with a very interesting and well-defined base of mining and resources, a lot of FDI, good legal structure. Dr. Kanat, what would you like to add from your perspective? What do you see as the two or three most interesting trends in Kazakhstan?
Hello, everybody. For Kazakhstan is heard of Eurasian country. It's a huge country in Central Asia mainly. So, and we have a good, huge markets as a Chinese market in neighbor countries in Central Asia and at least I should say it's a Russian market also. So, as Andrew before said, we have launched a new legislation in subsoil users sector, and the liberalization of our legislation, it gives a huge opportunity to start a lot of exploration works and attracted some attracted huge international companies in mining sector, as a Fortescue Metal Group from Australia and Rio Tinto, and it gives a very good second wind for develop a junior mining sector. I think it gives Kazakhstan, it's mining country, and we have more than 200 years experience. So I think second wind gives a huge impulse to develop this sector, and developing of neighbor country as a Chinese and China and the Indian country. I think it impacts also very positive to Kazakhstan market in mining sector. Nowadays, we have launched a new legislation in subsoil user sector and environment safety sector, new ecology code according to international standards. I think all of these parts give a huge opportunity to develop in our country, mainly mining sector.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dr. Kanat. If you keep the microphone, I want to ask you, what would you say are the one or two most common misconceptions about Kazakhstan, about your country?
I think first thing is the territory of Kazakhstan already were covered by exploration surveillance. It's not true because we have a huge opportunity in apparently in exploration sector, because only 35% of our territory were covered by exploration surveillance. And we should make a lot of exploration works and discover a lot of deposits. And Kazakhstan tries to develop in rare earth metals sector also. I think it's very huge sector which could take a good place and a good part of this developing. And the second thing, it's some problems of to provide the business, to develop a business. We have a good legislation. I think Kazakhstan is established new in Kazakhstan. Astana International Financial Center is established. It's some, I think it's copy paste of the Dubai International Financial Center, and it gives a huge opportunity to establish companies under the common law, and uh, and some another jurisdiction. It gives a huge opportunity for companies and for mainly for foreign companies to develop their business in Kazakhstan. And the third thing is it's a competences, human resources. But Kazakhstan has, as I said before, a huge experience in mining sector. A lot of technological decisions and some inventors. I think this sector also is provided by very high competence people.
Fantastic, thank you. So you said huge opportunity was described to me as perhaps Kazakhstan is like Australia of the 1970s. And yet at the same time you have a very good business environment to attract mining. So Andrew, let me ask you the same question now. What would you say are the couple of most common misconceptions about Kazakhstan?
I think the most common misconception, put it slightly differently, I think the most common reaction I get when meeting, say, investors in North America or in Europe is just a general lack of knowledge about Kazakhstan. And the question is, what is it like to operate in Kazakhstan? And they sort of sit back in their chair and basically want you to explain that to them. And we've been operating there for decades, and as a listed company for the past, we were listed for 17 years ago. And during that time, Kazakhstan has developed enormously. We talked about the mining code that's come through. That's based on World Bank recommendations. That's looking at other international jurisdictions, including Australia, and it's copied across. Dr. Kanat has mentioned the Astana International Finance Centre. That's based on English common law. So people are able to set up companies, establish it there, knowing that they will have recourse to English judges making rulings under English common law. But going beyond that into what's it like to actually operate as a mining company in Kazakhstan? Well, this goes back a little bit to the country's history. So it is a mining jurisdiction. And as Dr. Kanat says, that leads us to having a very skilled workforce, well-trained, well-educated through the former Soviet system, and now Kazakhstan has continued to invest in engineering and all of these skills. So we have a very experienced and skilled workforce available, which is one, of course, key area for a mining company. The second key ingredient to operating in mining is power. Kazakhstan, on the breakup of the Soviet Union, had some of the Soviet Union's largest power stations located to the north of the country. They have invested in expanding the grid, modernizing those power stations. Today, Kazakhstan has one of the lowest power costs globally per unit. So there is, that's another extremely attractive aspect of operating in Kazakhstan. Water, Kazakhstan has sufficient water for mining operations. And of course, critically, and this is, I think, differentiates Kazakhstan from a number of developing countries, is the transportation infrastructure. And here, access to markets. So Kazakhstan may be landlocked, but it has a land border with China, and it has established rail network across the entire country. So we can move our material, our concentrate that we're producing in Kazakhstan, within a matter of days. It is border crossed and is heading to the world's largest consumer of commodities, China. So when you put this together, you have an extremely favorable environment to operate mining companies. And so Kaz Minerals, we've managed to successfully deliver very significant, globally significant projects on time, on budget in Kazakhstan. We took our business from 85 kilotons to 380 kilotons this year. Those aspects of operations has led us to have either the lowest cost or amongst the lowest cash costs of any copper company globally over the last few years, because of those key ingredients to mining that we have available to us in Kazakhstan. And in answer to the question, I think there is just a general lack of awareness of what the environment is actually like in Kazakhstan and how favorable it is for mining businesses there.
Terrific. Thanks very much for painting a really interesting picture of Kazakhstan. So now I want to ask you, what and if you start, Andrew, what's your most significant challenge and how are you overcoming it?
So I think the most significant challenge we've had in recent times has been through supply chain. So Kazakhstan's a landlocked country. We receive a lot of material through China, historically through Russia. And during COVID, global supply chains were severely disrupted. That led to cost inflation. It led us to holding additional inventory. And this has been compounded by the conflict in Ukraine, which has also then further impacted supply chain through Russia. So as a business, we have increased our own inventories. We've worked with key suppliers for them to actually hold more inventory in country. It's also actually served as a catalyst to help develop local supply chain, because we can see through this situation the benefits now of having more local supply. We were always working on that, but this has served as a real catalyst to that, as we've had to now source alternatives wherever we can. Fortunately, the situation is improving. I think the global sort of supply chain issues have eased certainly over the last 6 months. You can see that reflected in freight costs, in the transportation times and so on. So that has been easing, which is great. But I'd say, Wendy, that's been the biggest challenge we've had over the past couple of years.
Yes, and not dissimilar from other parts of the world as well. Thanks very much, Andrew. Dr. Kanat, from your perspective, what is the most significant challenge that you have, and how are you overcoming it?
I think in exploration sector, we faced a lack of investments in exploration works, because all of the huge mining deposits where we have operated, all of them were discovered in Soviet Union period. So last 30 years we have faced some problems with to increase of some solid minerals. And at this reason, due to this situation, our government has launched new legislation according to West Australian good experience, and tries to attract a lot of investments for exploration. And our expectation is we should discover something, number of huge deposits in Kazakhstan. It's all of the experts, they approved already this thesis, and all of the exploration companies work in this way. So at that reason, for example, our company, we have established a private equity fund in Astana International Financial Center, and we completed a pipeline of projects in mining sector for base metals, precious metals, and the rare earth metals in prospective site. And we want to attract investments to apparently to exploration works and to discover something huge. It's a I think it's a very lack of investments. It's one of the some challenges in Kazakhstan nowadays. And the second thing, we have launched a good legislation, but we have some infrastructure problems as a geological database and something else. But as Andrew mentioned before, government tries to create a database, geological database, and attend a lot of international service companies to technological companies to our market to establish to create a new geological databases and the infrastructure things and a lot of parts of infrastructure for develop exploration in the mining sector. It's a second thing, and I think it's a all of the some of very important challenges in Kazakhstan nowadays.
Thank you. So, a really wonderful base of information that's available to build on in Kazakhstan. So, we've got about 5 minutes left. So, two quick questions. So, Dr. Kanat, we're in Saudi Arabia. What would you see as being synergies that could potentially be explored between Kazakhstan and Saudi Arabia?
I think it's a huge opportunity to develop a cooperation. Yeah, we have a, our government has a good relations with Saudi Arabia because it's same culture, same religion, and the same economics, and the territory, also huge territory. And the government of Saudi Arabia also has launched a program of exploration works in solid minerals. And at this reason, I think we can combine our efforts and, for example, to attract, we try to attract in our fund new investors and to include some projects in Saudi Arabia also to our portfolio. And in parallel, develop in two countries exploration projects in mining sector.
Thanks very much. Andrew?
Well, the Future Minerals Forum brings together many countries that, including Kazakhstan, Saudi Arabia, where this is where the world's future minerals need to come from to meet global demand. And through these forums, we're seeking to develop best practice, exchange ideas, and I think that will be a huge benefit to Kazakhstan, to Saudi Arabia, and to all the regions covered. And I think that's the principle that we will get from these Future Minerals Forums.
Beautiful. So, sharing of resources and also learning from one another, and the joint leadership from this part of the world. So, very final question. What are you most excited about, Andrew?
Well, as a commodities company, as a mining company, we face a huge challenge in meeting the world's future demand requirements. And we feel that we operate in an environment in Kazakhstan where there are very significant deposits still to be exploited. We feel the country is fully embracing FDI and continue to attract that. So we believe that the country has that stability that you need in mining, which is a long-term venture through the various stages, and that's in place. And as I mentioned earlier, we feel all of those key components are there to operate successfully. And Kaz Minerals will absolutely do its utmost to expand its production to meet the growing demand from the world for minerals in a fair and sustainable way.
Yeah, I agree with Andrew, and additionally, my expectation is to discover T1 category deposits in Kazakhstan, and I wish all the best to Saudi Arabia also to discover huge deposits and to develop a new sectors in mining sector, new directions as a future minerals, as a rare earth metals, rare metals, and which can provide future energy and the future developing projects in the world.
Fabulous. What a great note to end on. So what you've heard about is the wonderful opportunities in Kazakhstan and the the depth of experience, capability, the mining regulation that's supportive of mining, the opportunities. You've got a land of many different resources, from copper to iron ore to rare earths to many others. So I'd like you to join me in thanking Andrew Southam and Dr. Kanat for their wonderful discussion of Kazakhstan and the current and future potential in their fabulous country.